We're very delighted to have 4 experts here tonight who can answer lots of questions and take us through this intertidal zone into the world of seaweed. So our 4 experts know their dulse from their dabalocks, and we're going to start off with Carrie, who is a guild member, who's going to give us the very big picture of seaweed and its global history. She's just written one of her very good reaction books on seaweed. Then we're going to zoom into Scotland, and really glad tonight we've got Fiona Houston and Zara Milne, who's just joined the guild, and they are wild food experts who got particularly interested in seaweed to the point where they set up a company called Mara, which I think has found a very clever way of making seaweed really accessible for everyday use. So Fiona's going to talk about different kinds of seaweed and how you harvest it and what they do and a bit about the health aspect of it. But Mara are very much about taste, and Zara has written a wonderful seaweed cookbook which has just come out. And so she's going to talk about the different gastronomic uses, and at the end we've got some tasting plates for people to try different foods with their different Mara products. Also very exciting, we've got seaweed butter, which was developed with Brett Graham of the Levery and is unbelievably good. I'm afraid I had a little taste before. And then I'm really pleased we've got Kimiko Barber, who's going to talk about the Japanese take on seaweed and how she uses her 5 favourite kinds. Just before we start, I just wanted to tell you about the gin and tonic, which comes from this new distillery on the Isle of Harris, which is a bit of a sort of social enterprise distillery. And they got a botanist to go and forage to find their botanicals locally, and ended up with sugar kelp, which I've got a little bottle. Yeah, which one is it? Yeah, if anyone wants to lick it. If anyone doesn't want to lick it, the apothecary in Lewes, Sussex, has distilled some, which is rather amazing on scallops and all sorts of seafood. And if you want to taste it, just come and get a bottle, a little there, or put it in a drink, and you can see what you think. Yeah, very good. So, and then also Nick Barnard from Rude Health has bought some seaweed biscuits to take away as well. So, and Zara's bought some books if anyone's interested, but there are also those are to buy, but there are also ones, I bought her book for people to flick through, and a rather amazing, this was recommended to me by Rory, amazing other book from my collection of seaweed books. Great, so I'm going to start with Carrie, yeah. And you just have to go like that.
This one?
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Hello, I'm Carrie O'Connor. I'm a guild member, and I'm also a food anthropologist. So what that means is what I write about is the way we, what people think about the food that they eat and how they prepare it, which I think adds another dimension to just the eating. I do it in different periods and different cultures. And tonight is really interesting because it's about seaweed, and for one thing, it's great to see such a full room and to know that seaweed is a food whose time has come. Hurrah, certain people have been out there on their own for a long time. But what I've discovered about seaweed is they may have been on their own here, but all over the world, seaweed has been a central food for a very long time. Now, I did a little book on seaweed, which is the little yellow one, which is basically the anthropology and culture of seaweed. And what I discovered was several well-established myths, which I do a lot to demolish. Okay, now the first myth is that, seaweed is only a forage food for bad times, when you're starving. Something that you eat when there's nothing else. But this is completely untrue. This is the famous example, of course, of the Irish famine. But if you go back to the time of the High Kings of Ireland, it was a highly, highly prized food, treasured. And if you go back, say, to ancient China, the seaweed was so prized that the best kind is kept for the emperor. And seaweed is one of the 12 symbols of sovereignty. So if you ever wondered what those symbols are on a dragon robe worn by the emperor, the seaweed is those little tendril bits that are rising from the waves. And among the, say, in South America, the Peruvian coast is wonderfully rich in seaweed, and the Inca emperor used to have runners who would bring the freshest seaweed up to the high mountain capital in Cusco. You know, the famous runners who they would run until they dropped and handed it on. So it was really, really prized. Okay, so it's not a forage food. Now, what is it? Well, let me see. The other next myth is that this is something that was just sort of invented in the 18th century, or it's not very old, but in fact, it's very, very, very old seaweed as a human food. Now, the oldest reference in literature, over 2,000 years old, is the Epic of Gilgamesh, so I'm sure you've heard of it. And the hero king Gilgamesh goes out to the deep sea, and he goes fishing for a seaweed that has the secret of immortality. And if you eat it, you will never die. And I think this is funny because it shows that even back then, you've got the idea that seaweed will somehow keep you young forever, which is what we see every time you look at seaweed cosmetics. You know, the wonderful creams, which they don't work, by the way. But anyway, we have this. Now, the other thing is, you know, you've got this, we're all taught that we populated the world, migrations, inland, shooting mammoths and eating them, and that's how, you know, man populated the earth. But archaeologists are discovering now that we didn't just go inland. A whole lot of the migrations were along the coast, and that early man ate shellfish and also ate seaweed. So there was a very, very early paleo diet that was marine, based on seaweed and shellfish, and it was really our earliest superfood. So that's good to know. Now, people think also that seaweed doesn't really matter. It's always been a weed. But in fact, if you look, you find all over the world there are wonderful rites and rituals that attest to the value of seaweed. Here, there's the Celtic god Shoni, which has given his name to some of the Mara products, including this wonderful sort of savory salt. And Japan, as Kiniko knows, lots and lots of rituals devoted to seaweed. And here's one of them that still goes on. What happens is, for these rituals, in the first day of the year, day of the new year, right, you have to run out and get the first seaweed and put it on the altar as an offering, you know, to bring a good harvest in the year. And this is Hayatomo Shrine. And the head priest has to run out in the early, early morning with only a torch, gather the seaweed and run back before the waves overtake him. And you can still see that today. So then, also, people think that eating seaweed is something that's really only done in Asia. Now, you're going to hear this isn't true. But you know, it's in Scotland, also in Ireland, or in my favorite place, Wales, and Lava, which I adore, absolutely adore. And this week, you might have read, Wales pulled off a great triumph after 3 years of trying. They got lava bread declared a protected, you know, species, like Melton Mowbray pies and Stilton's. It's unclear what's going to happen now that Brexit is here, but this campaign started more than 3 years ago. And these are the people that were leading it, Selwyns. And if you look on this, that very, very pretty detail is actually the bay where now, it's Swansea Bay, they're trying to develop growing lava on rafts, which would be wonderful because, of course, that's what they do in the Far East. Now, lava is the Welsh seaweed. Other people concentrate on different kinds, and the Welsh just on lava. And it's interesting that it was Welsh lava that actually led to the sushi revolution, because it was an English lady scientist who was working on Welsh seaweed who worked out that it had a very, very, very complex reproduction cycle. In the Far East, they'd always loved lava and really, really treated it as an elite food, but they were never able to grow it in a mass way because of this very, very tricky reproductive cycle. But this lady, Kathleen Brubaker, worked out how to crack it, and after World War II, shared her secret with the Japanese scientist, and as a result, they were able for the first time to do nori as a mass product, which led to the sushi revolution, which converted a lot of people here to seaweed. So having opened that up, I will now leave you with our next speaker. Thank you.